Welcome to Thursday Book Club with my guest, Rae Cairns. I'm coming to you from La Rochelle in France, where I've been for the last month and a half, and having a great time, really. Perhaps a little bit too great. I think a bit more running, a bit less eating might be in order. As you've heard, I'm recording this session, so please switch off your video if you don't want to be recorded, and so that we can have a clear sound, if you could also mute yourselves. For those of you who are new, my name is Suzanne Leal, and I'm an author and also the host of this Thursday Book Club, which is a weekly online book club, which is supplemented with a weekly newsletter. If you'd like to join us or get more information, please sign up on my website. My website is SuzanneLeal, Leal.com. But today I'm so excited to be here with my friend and fellow author, Rae Cairns. Welcome to you, Rae.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Suzanne.
Just to introduce those who don't know Rae a little bit, Rae is the author of The Good Mother, which you can see in the background of her screen. It's a thriller that takes us to Northern Ireland in the aftermath of the Troubles. Rae has a background both as an actor and a mentor for disadvantaged youth. And there's so much more to find out about her, which I'm hoping we'll do today. Welcome to you, Rae.
Thank you.
Let's start by finding out a little bit more about The Good Mother. Now, The Good Mother is, in fact, your main character, Sarah Calhoun. Tell me a bit about her.
She's divorced. She's an Australian. She's a soccer mum of 3, who's keeping pretty terrifying secrets from her whole family.
And without giving those secrets away, where has she been and how have those secrets begun before she comes to Australia?
Back in the 1990s, she worked as an aid worker in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and she had planned to make her life there. She's Australian, but she planned to make her life there, and things happened that made her run back home.
And when we reintroduced to her, of course, she has children, and one of those children is preparing to go for a soccer camp back to Ireland, and that's where the adventure starts. Tell me, Rae, what was the inspiration for this book?
Okay, well, I worked in Northern Ireland during the final years of the Troubles, mentoring disadvantaged youth. So lots of, and the children of, many of them were children of the paramilitaries, like the IRA and the UVF. I took them away on camps together so they'd meet for the first time. And the idea was to kind of build bridges, break down the prejudices they had and stuff. So I was over there doing that. I was in my mid-20s. I met a guy and started dating him, and he was extraordinarily charming. He could dance, he could sing, he just kind of knew how to be charming. And then we were out one night, and I had an acquaintance kind of let it slip that my boyfriend was in fact an active paramilitary member. And I had no idea. I was over there building bridges, and he was on the other side working against that. So it was a heck of a shock. I was over there, I was on my own. I broke off the relationship straight away, but stuff lingered, all these questions. Like it was like the carpet had been pulled out from underneath me. I didn't know whether the relationship had even been real. I didn't know if he was trying to just gain information from me, because I was interacting very closely with both sides of the sectarian divide. And with when you're dealing with people's children, you deal with, the parents very closely. So I was worried that I'd maybe inadvertently given something away. I didn't understand why he was with me. There was so much I didn't get. I wondered, like, when I would have found out, how long would he be let go? How deep in would I have been? And then I suppose as the years went on after I left Northern Ireland, I always had that thing of what would happen if I bumped into him again, because I pretty actively avoided him once I ended things. I moved houses and did all of that over there. So Sorry?
How long were you together with him? How long was the relationship?
Like weeks, but it was like a whirlwind, you know. It was like about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, but it was an absolute whirlwind. It was every day. It was, you know, I'd finish work and he took me to like a wedding on the weekend. You know, it was, I was kind of diving in too fast, typical young 20s, you know. And I think he love bombed me, you know, like it was very much that he was so charming, and I now realize it was a very different relationship to what I thought it was at the time. But I was pretty naive when I went over there. So I guess in that sense, I was a easy target. So I had that. I had all those questions. And then when I sat down to write, like 17 years later, I decided I wanted to write about those questions. I wanted to write about my experiences somewhat. I wanted to draw on my experiences from Northern Ireland, not so much write about them. And so I used that as a starting off, like a jumping off point for the story, having a relationship that is not what you think it is. And then I was a mother at the time when I sat down to write 17 years later. And I'd been to like mothers groups, and I'd been to lots of groups of people saying, you know, I'd do anything to protect my children. And I kind of really wanted to interrogate what that meant, because there's a lot of moral ambiguity in that. And there's a lot of, what are the practicalities of doing anything? How far would you go? What exactly would you do? What if you've got more than one child? Which one do you know? So that kind of fed into the story as well. And then when I went back and visited Northern Ireland to kind of check location and all of that, I did that in 2016. I realized I really wanted to thread through the kind of ongoing impact of civil conflict, of sectarian violence on the people that live there. So I already had 2 10-year-old boys in story, but I really kind of fleshed them out much more, and I revisited them when they were adults to see what the impact of living through the Troubles and living in that kind of environment where everything is a little shaky underfoot. Those 3 things kind of all threaded together to get the story.
I mean, that sounds like a very deep and very thoughtful novel. And yet what you've done is manage these quite complex ideas into really what's a thriller or a crime novel. Was that the intention of it, to go deep, but to keep the narrative light enough to draw people in?
Absolutely. And it was about very focused on pacing and kind of taking people along with me. And then I was hoping by the end, after they'd finished the book, that some of this stuff would kind of sit with them a little bit. Like, you know, so many people have said, you know, so is Sarah a good mother? You know, and it's great because it's a good conversation over, and it's like, well, what is a good mother? You know, what does that mean to you? And the fact that we even judge that, you know, with women, I guess, about motherhood and stuff. So it's been, I guess, those deeper thoughts have fed into that side of things. But yeah, I wanted it to be thriller. I wanted it to be highly paced. I wanted you to kind of go on this wild ride with Sarah, where she was thinking on her feet and making a lot of mistakes. I wanted a flawed character. That's what's interesting to me, as someone who's flawed, trying to make their way in the world. I want an ordinary person in an extraordinary circumstance. So yeah, so that's the stuff I suppose I try to make sense of the world through writing and through what people do. But yeah, there's the pacing and there's the action, and it's kind of make things worse.
Does that come, do you think, from what you read as well? I mean, is there a particular type of book that you read that feeds into your own writing?
I tend to read quite broadly. I pretty much, I love getting recommendations from people, and it can be hit and miss, you know, but I love getting recommendations. I will say at the moment I have read a lot of crime, just because, you know, that's what happens when you release a book, you get books, and I'm loving that. And I've always read crime, and I've always watched crime on TV, but I've also had other influences, and I'm always open to story. I guess for me, story and character and it is important, and that comes from my performing background. I think telling the stories.
So what drew you to study performing arts rather than, say, creative writing or another area?
Well, so school, I didn't think I would be capable of writing. It's not that I didn't do okay at school, but I never had anyone kind of encourage me within my writing. It was always, oh, you've got these fanciful stories or whatever that I would put together. But my first acting job, I was 18 months old. So it was a hair commercial. I was on the shampoo bottle, and then I went on to do lots of singing and dancing. So I kind of had a career. I did a lot through my kind of pre-teens into my teens. I went to the Conservatorium of Music and studied singing out of school hours. You could do an out of school hours program, but you had to, audition and everything to get in. And then I did it was kind of like natural progression. I went overseas and did a show kind of in America and Europe, and then came home and went, right, I'm going to study performing arts. That's what I should do. And I did the degree. And Joel Edgerton was in my class. So, he was amazing. He's a gorgeous human being. And then I got to the end of my degree, got my diploma, and went, actually, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It was an industry thing versus a creative thing. And I think I wasn't built for the industry in the way that I think you need to be. And I'd also had like years of performing, and I loved it. And I still love singing, and I love the creative process and working with other people, because it's such a collaborative experience performing. But yeah, it wasn't what I wanted anymore.
And when you say you love singing, what sort of singer have you been or are you?
So that was funny. At the Conservatorium of Music, I did classical, which for a 16-year-old who'd been raised in a house with rock music was like crazy. But I learned, and I had to sing in other languages and all of that stuff. So that was interesting. And for me, I would say that probably what all my life it's about learning and growing and changing. So I did the classical, but I did a lot of my work in music theatre, various musicals.
And before we leave that, just that when you talked about the shampoo ad, I had this picture before me. What brand is it? Because I'm sure that I'm not the only one.
It's called Velveine. It was
Velveine.
called Velveine, and it was like a big ads in the paper, and I was on the bottle and stuff. It's very, very funny.
I bet we can find it. I bet we can Google
I've got the
excellent.
I don't have a shampoo bottle, but I have the ad. My mum dug it out from somewhere.
Let's leave shampoo ads alone and move to your journey to publication. Now, you have a 2-book deal with HarperCollins, so I'm presuming that everything just went swimmingly right from the beginning. Am I correct?
Of course. Just a straight road, nice and easy, not a problem at all. No, not at all.
At the beginning.
So I started writing, I think about 2014, and I had never really written. I'd written poetry all my life, but I hadn't shown a soul, and I'd, written stories, and I'd been collaborative works, but I'd never shown anyone anything really. And so in 2014, I decided, right, I just want to get this story that's bursting in my head out. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be a play. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a book. And then it just came out as a novel. And it took me about 8 months to get it to a point where I could bear to show it to somebody. And that was because I'd done a Sydney Writers' Festival workshop event with Mark Lamprell, who's a writer, producer, director, gorgeous human being. And in that session, he got a couple of us to pitch what our idea for our book was, and we kind of had to run through the story and what we thought happened. And I did mine. And the next day, he actually got off stage at the Sydney Writers' Festival and came down and said, "You've got to send it to me when you're done." Gave me his card and everything. So that motivated me to finish the story. And I was incredibly lucky, and what an incredibly generous thing for him to do. I mean, it was a beautiful thing to do, because it did really motivate me. So I finished that draft, sent it to him. I'm mortified by the fact I sent it to him now, and he came back, and he's so kind-hearted and generous. And he said, "I love the story. I love the characters. Your dialogue's really pretty good." And that's from the acting, "but you need to get some writing skills." And it was totally fair comment, and it rang true. And so I took that on board, and I went into a year-long mentorship with Catherine Hayman. And it was like boot camp. She dug in with me and went to the very basics, from how to format a manuscript, like as basic as that, through, and then through all the kind of very simple things, through to deeper stuff like the outside world reflecting the inside world of the character, and bookending, and the story and things like that. But initially it was very, very basic cliches and all of that stuff. So we would go through 10,000 words at a time, and I would hand her 10,000 words, and she would give me feedback on that. And then I'd have to apply that feedback to the next 10,000, and then I'd get more feedback. So he kind of went in deeper and deeper each time. Just, she's skilled. She's just so good at what she does. Like she imparts this knowledge in a way that didn't crush me. I was really challenged by it. And I think that process, I'm very grateful to her, because it really taught me to embrace feedback as opposed to reject it. Because when you first start, that reaction to feedback is like, "Oh, no, but you don't understand, she's doing this and that because of this and that." And Catherine would go, "It's not on the page," and it was a really good lesson for me to just kind of go, if someone's asking a question, it's my job to go back in and start answering it in the manuscript. And I'm very grateful. She's an amazing mentor. She was just incredible. So I finished the mentorship with her, and that manuscript got me an agent. And that was incredible. And it was all very exciting. And she was talking about, bidding wars and all of that stuff. And she put it out, and there were crickets. There was not one publisher that was even slightly interested. And that was my first moment of real challenge, like, oh, okay, because everything had gone pretty, I'd been lucky with the support I'd had. So I talked it over with my agent. She didn't really know where to go with the story then, and I knew it needed more work. So we amicably parted ways, and I took the manuscript back and rewrote what I thought needed doing. And then I put it in for a manuscript assessment and got some really solid feedback on commercial, kind of looking at that side of things, because I'd written what I wanted to write. And then, you kind of had to adjust it and be more aware of certain things within the story. And I did that. So I got the assessment, I rewrote and addressed the issues of the assessment. And that new manuscript got me a new agent who was amazing.
And it's not easy to get an agent. I mean, I think some people don't know. I mean, it's a really difficult thing, because agents are busy and agents need to be pretty judicious as to what they're taking. So to get an agent is no mean feat, is it?
No, look, I was incredibly fortunate to have that experience. And I guess what it did was give me, there's something in this manuscript, like there is something. So it gave me that solid base, I guess, which we'll come to later. But so she took it on, and same thing. She's like, this is just going to, go like wildfire. And she put it out. And this time there were some nibbles and stuff, but it just didn't get over the line. And then I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was really sick, and I had a reaction to medication. My hair fell out. I was wearing a wig. I could barely string a sentence together to speak, let alone write one. And so writing went to the back burner. It was just about trying to find not a solution because you can't cure RA, but a way of dealing with it to find the right medication. So it took 2 years. And when we did find the right medication, I was excited to go back to writing and ready. So I rang up my agent and said, right, I'm ready to go. And she said, I'm so sorry, Rae, I'm closing my agency. And that was the moment that I went, okay, I don't know if this is meant to be, like, am I hitting my head against a brick wall here? And that was when my mentors and the writing group I was in and the people I'd met in the writing community who'd read bits and pieces of it stepped in and really rallied around me and just said, this has merit. Keep going. And it had been 5 years, I think. And I just kind of went, I want this. I just want to draw a line under this book and put it out there. It does have merit, but I can't get it traditionally published, which is what I wanted. So I made the decision to self-publish with a lot of encouragement. But my big thing was it had to be able to sit on a shelf next to traditionally published books and you couldn't tell, either with the cover or the interior. I wanted it to be of quality. So I did research. So I decided this in February of 2020, and I did research into editors and professional cover designers. And it was like being CEO of your own company. I had to learn everything from the ground up. I had to learn about running a business. I had to learn about PR and formatting and marketing and BISAC codes for it was such a big learning curve. So it took me 10 months to do all of that. I had it professionally edited. I had it professionally cover designed. And so in December 2020, I put it out. And oh my gosh, I was just so genuinely grateful and genuinely lucky to have the support that I had from other professionals in the field, like other writers. And it managed to get it into a national paper, which gave it more visibility, I guess. And it garnered some really good reviews. And I did it. It's out. I've done it. It's gone beyond my friends and family. I will consider that a success. Now on to the next one. Now let's move forward. And then in February 2021, a vision impaired lady had contacted Belinda Audio, so Belinda Audio contacted me and said, we'd love to offer you a contract. She's recommended your book to us. We've read it and we'd love to offer you an audiobook contract. I was like, okay, sure. And so that came out in June 2021. And that was amazing because that then for me meant I was hybrid. I had a traditional contract with them, and then I had the ebook and print rights myself. And then in July was when I got the phone call. I got a message from a friend saying, oh my God, congratulations, this is incredible. And I was like, what? And they said, oh, you've been shortlisted for the Ned Kellys for best debut
crime novel.
Crime fiction. Yeah. And I didn't even know that could happen. I'd entered, but I didn't know that a self-published book could even really get consideration. And it changed my life. 2 weeks later, I had an agent, Jean Rickmans at Cameron's, and a week later, I had the 2-book contract with HarperCollins. So I went, I've done the whole gamut. So no, it wasn't a straight road at all.
It's it's fascinating to hear that, and it's just fascinating to hear the drive and the resilience. And I think if there's anything that a writer needs, it's that hunger to do the work. For you, is it a drive to keep writing creatively, or is it a drive to be recognised as a writer?
For me, it's about the work. I think it's about making it the best I can be. And it's always been about trying to make it the best it can be, like that focus. To get nominated for the Ned Kelly blew my mind. It's such a prestigious award, and just to be nominated, was amazing. And it made me think, oh, maybe I can do this on a different level. But I think that was why I pulled out of acting, it wasn't about fame and that kind of stuff for me. It was very much about the work, and writing is the same. And it's about trying to make sense of people and why they do things. And that's how I kind of process the world, I guess.
If anyone's been sort of active on social media or been dipping in, you'll have seen that Rae has a new book out in April next year with a terrific cover. And I'll leave it to you, Rae. What's it called? And what's it about? Just give it a taster. I know we have to wait.
It's called Dying to Know. It's another thriller. It's a standalone thriller. This one's set in Sydney. And essentially the story opens with budding journalist Geneva Layton receiving a phone call from her sister who's trapped in the boot of a moving car. And the story goes from there.
I just want to ask, but does she die? But I suppose you can't tell me.
I have to read the book.
How was it? How was the writing this book? I presume did you start writing it before or after the contract with HarperCollins? Was it something already before or not?
I had started it. I was about halfway through. Oh. Well, I thought I was halfway through. And I had this idea. So there's the whole plotter pantser thing. You write by the seat of your pants, which means you just kind of sit down and write. And it really shocked me to find that that's what I am, because I'm in every other part of my life, I'm very list oriented and organized. So the first book I did, by the seat of my pants, and I loved that. I loved the discovery of that. And then I went for the second book. Well, that doesn't, that's not the way to do it. I'm going to make sense. I'm going to do this, the way I usually do things. And I plotted it out and everything. And it just didn't. I wish it worked for me, but it didn't. So I thought I was halfway through, but I'd actually totally written off in the wrong direction. Rather than following what needed to happen, I was too rigid in my choices. So I had to chuck 40,000 words and start again. But everyone's, plenty of writers have done that, and it's. I knew there was no point keeping on going down that track. So I had to, I guess I had the sense of the story and a sense of the characters and the issues at play. And I was able to do that through the contract. Like once I was contracted, I was able to, but there's been a shorter time frame, obviously, and a different learning curve, the whole thing just keep learning and growing and learning and growing. So it's been very much this time about balancing the two books and almost head hopping between the two and trying to keep them both in focus when I need them to be, and learning how to do that, because that's the job of a writer,
Just listening to this story of how you came to HarperCollins and how it's going now reminded me of when I was when my eldest was at school, I took a French class once a week for a class of year one kids. And I'm thinking, how hard can it be?
You won.
Year one kids for one lesson a week. And I was exhausted both by the preparation and by the actual delivery of the program. And it seems to me that because you've had so much experience with self-publishing, you must bring with you a knowledge and perhaps even appreciation for the work that goes into producing a traditional book. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that it's given me an advantage in the sense that I really value the expertise of each person involved, because I know how much I needed to try and learn about all the areas. And these are people that have specialized in them. So I guess I feel very respectful if I get an editing note. Okay, really seriously consider, even if I disagree at first, seriously consider this. This person has dedicated their life to this. They're an expert. I was also aware, I guess, within PR and stuff that I need to put in as well. Like it's not being done for me. I'm part of the process, and it's a collaboration. I guess that's the thing. You sign a contract and now your book is a collaboration.
So you've got people to come with you rather than carry you completely.
Yeah, and who want it to succeed, but they also need you to contribute your energy and time and everything, you know, ideas to that.
I'm going to turn to questions in just a moment. So I'll just ask anybody if they've got questions, if you could just pop it quickly in the chat box, and we'll get to those. But in the meantime, we love recommendations here at Thursday Book Club. And I'm wondering if you have a few books that you might recommend for us.
I do. I've just finished The Tilt by Chris Hammer, and I am just astonished by how he can have so many story threads and bring them all together. Like, I got halfway through that book and went, how is he going to do this? Like, how is he going to bring this together? And he does. He's very skilled and clever. And so I learned from that, and I found that really interesting that he did that. And then I heard that he writes it like from the beginning to the end, different points of view and everything. Like, how does he do that? That's amazing to me. So
what he just sits down and just writes.
He's a pantser. He's a pantser, and he writes it. It's different points of view, and there was different time periods, 3 different time periods. I was just
and just doesn't know what's going to happen. Wow.
No idea. Yeah, gobsmacked. So that was an interesting experience for me, reading that book from that perspective and just seeing how a skilled writer can bring all those things together. And then I read Lessons in Chemistry by, I think, Bonnie Garmis, I think it is. And oh, what a delightful book that is. I mean, just
what's it about?
Really, it's about a woman. I'm going to get the timing wrong, but I think it's in the 1950s, and she's a chemist. So she's a woman in a male-dominated field, but she's it kind of had a bit of a I think Eleanor Oliphant kind of feel. So she's quirky and interesting. And then there's a point of view with a dog, which I wouldn't have thought you could make work, but it was actually a beautiful part of the story. I'm not selling it very well, but it is really, it stayed with me, that book, and then made me think. And then I've had discussions with other people about the changing roles of women and how people like that really broke down the barriers and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's totally immersive. Like, it's a really probably a good summer read too, because it's, you know, you just go through it. And then thirdly is 15 Seconds of Brave by Melissa Doyle, which is a non-fiction. It's a newish book out, and she's gone back and interviewed it's a very formal term for it, but people that she has connected to in the past who've been through her journalistic career, who have had fairly traumatic experiences happen to them. And there's a whole gamut of experiences there. But it's not focused on that. It's focused on how they dealt with their situations. So 15 Seconds of Brave is a young boy who has an illness that I can't remember right now, which I'm very sorry, but he has to go and get in hospital a lot, and he gets injections, and she asked him, he hates the injections, and she asked him how he deals with it. He says, I just need to be brave for 15 seconds. And that's kind of that. So it's things like that. And for me, it really made me kind of interrogate myself and how I approach situations and how I view them afterwards. And just the amazing, how diverse people are and how they cope with things I found that really interesting.
Fascinating too, how a title comes to a book. I mean, I'm grappling with that at the moment for this adult novel, and you know, it's that slice from the novel. Or how do you do it? I mean, are these titles your titles, or are they come to you?
So the Good Mother was with one of my agents. We kind of went backwards and forwards, but Dying to Know was me. It wasn't initially Dying to Know. It was called The Empty Chair, and the publisher went, absolutely not. So I went, okay, I'll and then I went, got it. So yeah, that was but yeah, titles come from all sorts of places, don't they? Like discussions with people, or you've written a line and it kind of pops out for you, or it's a funny process. You're in the process of trying to figure that out at the moment.
Yeah, I've got about sort of 60 titles, and every now and then I send one to my agent, and she goes, no. And things like that. By the time the email is sent, when you think this is fantastic, this is going to knock your socks off, to the time it's actually read, and of course there's a time difference now because I'm overseas, it's completely changed. I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. So but it's that brainstorming, isn't it? And just sort of like writing itself, just thinking and thinking until something emerges.
And then doing the washing up or going for a walk, and then it suddenly, zings into your head.
And there it is. I'm mindful of the time, and I'm mindful that it's later for everybody there than it is for me. So what I'm going to say to our audience is if there's any questions that you have for Rae, please send them to me. And Rae, are you okay if I email them to you? And then we can
yes, absolutely,
in the newsletter. And I'll also pop Rae's suggestions or her book recommendations. And we did get through the 3 of them, we didn't we? Yes, we finished with Melissa Doyle. So I'll pop those in the newsletter. And in the meantime, look, happy proofreading with this new book.
Thank you.
We'll be very excited. In fact, we're dying to know how it all goes from here until April. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you, everybody.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, everyone.
See you, Rae. Bye.
Bye.